This video is sponsored by Aura.
Okay, if you caught a lot of the coverage around this new 10th generation iPad, especially mine, you might have noticed that it's a pretty strange device. But what I think a lot of reviewers fail to cover is this iPad actually worth your money? And really, who is this device for? But it doesn't matter who you are when it comes to protecting your banking information, and you need to take it seriously, which is why you need to check out Aura. Aura is the ultimate line of defense against identity theft. Aura monitors the dark web constantly, checking for compromised emails, passwords, social security numbers, and more, and can instantly send you alerts to your phone or email if you are the victim of identity theft. One of my favorite features with Aura is setting up limits for my transactions on my bank account. That way, if a transaction goes over that set limit, Aura will instantly send me an alert notifying me that a large purchase was made. This allows me to take instant action and monitor my credit cards and bank accounts against fraud. And of course, Aura can also provide near real-time alerts on suspicious credit card inquiries, like if someone was opening a loan or credit card in your name. And if you don't think you could be the target of identity theft, well, you're kind of being foolish, because identity theft is unfortunately really common. There's a new victim every 14 seconds, and it costs the average victim over $1,000 in damages. So in the time that you watch this sponsor read, 3 people have already had their identity stolen. But don't take my word for it, because Aura is giving you a 2-week free trial with the link in the description below. So go to aura.com/GregsGadgets to try it out for yourself. And thank you to Aura, not only for keeping my personal data safe, but also for sponsoring this video. Alright, so at first glance, this iPad, it's a little deceiving because it does everything possible to make it look like a standard iPad Air. It has the same design, the same bezels, the same camera, the same Touch ID on the power button, and it even has a USB-C port. If you put a silver iPad Air on the table and this new iPad on the table, it would be pretty hard to tell the difference. However, there are quite a few differences between these iPads. The first is the display. The 10th gen iPad still has a non-laminated display without any anti-reflective coating, and it's still not a P3 wide color gamut display. Some have said that Apple not laminating the display on this design was to save on repair costs, but I think that's kind of a bogus claim, considering when you check on Apple's website for the repair cost of this iPad against an iPad Air, if you adjust the repairs for cost, even though it is cheaper, it's still a very expensive repair. So I'm not really buying that story. I just think they did it to cut on costs of manufacturing this iPad. But forget that. What you really need to know is that the display, it looks good for the price. I know I'm gonna get some blowback on that, but I still think it's a good display. It's not a bad display. Colors still look good to me, viewing angles are still great, text is sharp, the display gets bright, and the 10.9-inch display size is really nice for a budget device like the iPad, where it is now positioned more as a complete laptop replacement rather than just a tablet. Can you peek at this display and notice some of the flaws? Yeah, of course. If you were fine with previous regular iPad displays, this one is going to be fine too. Speakers to me also seem like a nice improvement over the 9th generation iPad, where it only had bottom firing speakers. So this iPad sounds better, although the speakers aren't the best still. It still sounds a little bit hollow, especially compared to like an iPad Pro. But again, this is a budget device. But it's good that they put better speakers in here, because they got rid of the headphone port by moving it over to like this new iPad Air design. And like previous iPads, this iPad also moves to the new USB-C port standard, which is great. Finally, the iPad is getting recognized as the computer that it is, and this move to USB solidifies even Apple's cheapest iPad as the laptop killer it was meant to be. Well, almost. They were so close. Because while it's nice to have a USB-C port on this budget iPad, it's better than having a Lightning port. Not everything is as it appears, because for some reason, unknown to me, Apple chose for some reason to give us a really bad experience with this USB-C port, giving it the same USB 2.0 speeds as the existing Lightning port on the 9th generation iPad. That means that this USB-C port maxes out at only 480 megabits per second. For reference, the iPad Air's USB-C port is much faster at 10 gigabits per second, and the iPad Pro's Thunderbolt-capable port maxes out at 40 gigabits per second. So while you can connect this iPad to a wider range of USB-C accessories and even pair it with a 5K Apple Studio display, I don't know who's doing that, but you can do it. Listen, if you plan to transfer any data with this iPad, if you're planning to transfer large amounts of data with this iPad, you are going to be kept waiting with those slower USB-C speeds. It's very unfortunate, especially for a device that is just so close as being a budget laptop replacement. Now, yes, this USB-C nitpick might not be a deal breaker. Like, listen, how many standard iPad users are connecting it to external storage and offloading huge files? I would wager not many. And this move to USB-C means we can now have the second generation Apple Pencil. What do you mean it doesn't support the second generation Apple Pencil? It still uses the first generation, but that has Lightning. How does it? Oh, it requires an adapter. And the adapter is sold out? Yes, this is perhaps Apple's most baffling decision with the 10th gen iPad, and that is that it still supports the first gen Apple Pencil, which comes with a Lightning connector. There's not even an updated Apple Pencil to go alongside this iPad. It literally is just the same Lightning Apple Pencil, and you buy a separate adapter to go into the Lightning port, which then converts the male Lightning port that used to plug directly into the iPad into a female USB-C port, and then that requires an additional cable to pair and charge the Apple Pencil. Now, logically, your first instinct is to ask, why did Apple implement such a weird workaround to get the Apple Pencil 1 supported on here, and why didn't they just add a magnetic connector to the top of the iPad? Well, that may be because Apple also chose to incorporate a landscape camera, which actually does work really well, especially when using the iPad with the supported keyboard accessory, but it really makes you question if this landscape camera move was kind of like the right call if it couldn't incorporate the use of the superior design of the Apple Pencil 2. Another theory I've heard floating around is that Apple kept the Apple Pencil 1 usage around because existing iPad users already own them, and there's a lot of schools that also use the Apple Pencil 1, and replacing it with a second generation Apple Pencil would have added on too much additional cost to the existing iPad user base, to which I say, no. Listen, if it was really the case, and if Apple was really that concerned about that aspect of the new iPad, they could have easily made the first gen Apple Pencil support every iPad in the lineup with this adapter and still put on Apple Pencil 2 support for new users. Actually, that would have been a really smart move with the initial Apple Pencil 2 when that came out for the iPad Pro and users had to buy a new Apple Pencil. The first iPad Pro supported this Apple Pencil. Why didn't Apple release this adapter then so users could have the choice of if they wanted to continue using their first generation Apple Pencil or buy a new second generation Apple Pencil? And there's just no way around it. If you're an Apple Pencil user, this really does ruin the experience with this iPad. The Apple Pencil 2 looks better, feels better in the hand, has more features, and it pairs and charges better. It's a better experience. But hey, listen, I'm also sure that a lot of users during that initial transition from the Apple Pencil 1 to the Apple Pencil 2, if you owned a first-gen Apple Pencil, maybe you would have wanted to save some costs and pick this up, maybe even temporarily to use with your new iPad. So if you're already an existing iPad user and you have a first-gen Apple Pencil, I guess that's a way to save money. But to me, I still feel like this is inexcusable not to support the second-generation Apple Pencil. You could have supported both. And I don't know why Apple decided to do that. I'm guessing it's just something to do with cost, or maybe it really does have something to do with this landscape camera. But if it is the moving of that landscape camera that makes it so the second generation Apple Pencil does not work with a device like this, then I question why they moved it in the first place. Because I would have rather had it in the old position, which was worse. It was in a worse position. I would have rather had it in that old position to actually have the second gen Apple Pencil support. Now listen, let me bring it back down, because the Apple Pencil 1 itself, is it a bad experience when you're using it? No, it is still accurate for writing and drawing, and maybe that's the most important part. It functions as a good drawing mechanism. And again, until you have to pair it and charge it, then it just becomes awful. It feels like a duct taped together experience. It feels very un-Apple-like. Now, where Apple didn't use an old piece of hardware, which is almost kind of like equally as baffling. Like, why didn't they just let this thing support the Magic Keyboard? It has the right design for it, but whatever. Apple now has a new Magic Keyboard Folio. Now, there's some things to love about this. It's a $50 cheaper Magic Keyboard, which is great. Like, who wants to spend $300 on a keyboard? And it actually has a pretty nice sized keyboard with a full row of function keys, which is great for easily adjusting the volume on the iPad or the brightness or using it for media controls and even helping with multitasking and window management. And the trackpad is just a tad bit bigger as well. The keyboard also makes, as I said before, the camera orientation much better on the iPad compared to any other iPad in the market, meaning a less awkward viewing experience for video calls. This keyboard has more features than the iPad Pro's Magic Keyboard, arguably a better trackpad and a better keyboard, but it's not perfect. The trade-offs of all of this space is that this keyboard takes up more space when set up on a table. And it's also flimsier because this keyboard case comes in two parts, which is good and bad. The good part is that you can easily detach the iPad from the keyboard and still have the back of this iPad protected and still have full use of the kickstand on the back to prop up your iPad. The bad part is because it uses a kickstand, this device is more awkward to use in your lap as a laptop, and the case itself moves around a lot when it's closed, and the back of the case is a little too easy to dislodge if you're not careful. Now, we talked a lot about the iPad's weird design decisions, a lot of the accessories, but we really didn't talk about the internal hardware. And honestly, there's not a whole lot to say that would make this review helpful because, listen, it is good. There's an A14 chip in here. It's powerful for a budget-oriented device, and it makes the experience of using the regular iPad smooth and snappy. And it also makes the iPad a great device if you plan to pick it up and play a few games on it. It operates very similarly to the last generation iPad Air, which, you guessed it, had the same A14 chip, so there's nothing really new to report on here with this older hardware. As an iPad, it still operates as you would expect it to. Battery life continues to be very similar to all the other iPads with around 10 hours of battery life. And because the Smart Keyboard Folio doesn't have a backlight, which I failed to mention before, it doesn't have a backlight, I am actually finding that the standby time with the keyboard attached seems to be better than my iPad Pro with the Magic Keyboard attached, which does have backlit keys. I wonder if that's kind of contributing to this having less battery drain on the iPad itself. Maybe one negative you could say about this iPad's experience is that this iPad doesn't support Apple's Stage Manager feature. However, in Stage Manager's current state, I would say that's more of a selling point for this iPad, considering it's just not that much in a usable state right now. But let's not miss the point in this video. You want me to tell you if this iPad is worth it, whether that's for you personally or whether it's a gift or whether it's for your parents or your kids. And the answer is maybe. And I know as a reviewer, that's not the best answer I can give you, but as you've probably realized during this review, there's no one single deal-breaking issue with this iPad. For the most part, this is a cheaper iPad Air at $450, and that is a good price when you think about it for a cheaper iPad Air. However, it's one of those things where this iPad can kind of fall apart if the compromises start to add up. Like, are you an Apple Pencil user? Well, then this is a bad Apple Pencil experience. Oh, well, maybe you want a better display. Well, this doesn't have the best display. Maybe you need a faster USB-C port. Well, this has a slow USB-C port. Do you want the regular Magic Keyboard and do you not like this keyboard folio design? Well, a lot of these compromises start to add up if you don't like some of these feature decisions. And then that's where you start to go, okay, this iPad isn't worth it. I should go for something better, like an iPad Air or maybe even an iPad Pro. Conversely though, the same thing can be true. What if you don't care about the Apple Pencil? I feel like so many reviews always go, well, the Apple Pencil experience stinks. Why would you buy this? Hey, a lot of people buy an iPad, they never even use this thing. Who cares about it? What if you don't even plan to use this keyboard folio? Maybe you're just gonna take this iPad and use it as a tablet, right? Maybe you just want an iPad with a more modern design, with a landscape camera, and better performance than the 9th generation iPad. You're never gonna plug anything into this USB-C port except to charge this iPad. Then is this iPad worth it over the other iPads? And that answer might actually be yes for you. Like at $450, why would you buy the iPad Air over this if you don't plan to use any of the other features that it offers? Like, don't be fooled into thinking there's one answer, because there isn't. For some users, this iPad is the right choice. For others, you should consider a higher end version like the iPad Air or the iPad Pro. All right, everyone, and that is my review of the new 10th generation iPad. I really hope you found it helpful in deciding if it's right for you. If you did, please consider purchasing this or really any other iPad through one of my affiliate links in the description below. And if you found the video helpful, don't forget to leave me a like. If you want to see more from the channel, make sure you're subscribed. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And hey, I'll see you in the next video. I don't know if this iPad will, though.